Good morning students, welcome to lecture number 33 of the Signals and Systems course. Today we will be covering the topic of discrete Fourier transform. We will look at how discrete type Fourier transform and discrete Fourier transform are different. We will look at the synthesis and analysis equations of discrete Fourier transform, and then we will look at how DFT, discrete Fourier transform, is actually a linear transformation. So just to recall, in discrete time Fourier transform, the signal was discrete in time domain. However, in the frequency domain, the signal was continuous. So we required a continuous signal, a continuous function to represent our discrete time signal in the frequency domain. That might not be a very suitable approach for digital computers, where we would want the signal to be discrete in frequency domain as well. So that's why we get to discrete Fourier transform, which is discrete in frequency as well as time domain. So how do we achieve that? We simply sample the signal in frequency domain as well. So as you must recall, in time domain, if we sample a continuous time signal, and if we sample it at a sampling rate greater than the Nyquist sampling frequency, then we can, without any distortion, without any loss, we can reconstruct the continuous time signal. So that allowed us to just take the samples of a continuous time signal, make it a discrete time signal, and then work with that. Similarly, we will have to also look at what would be the conditions on the sampling of a signal in the frequency domain. So we will try to answer what happens when we sample a discrete time signal in the frequency domain. At this point, it would help to recall few previous concepts which we had seen. So we had seen that sampling to discretize in the time domain made the signal periodic in frequency domain, right? So when we were sampling the signal, so if you can go back and check the sampling Nyquist sampling theorem and the discussion before that. So when we sample the signal in time domain, we saw that the signal was becoming periodic in the frequency domain. Also, we had previously seen that continuous time periodic signals has a discrete frequency spectrum. So if a signal is continuous in time domain, but if it is periodic, its frequency spectrum is discrete. So you can go back and check lecture number notes of lecture number 25 to refresh this concept. So from these two concepts, you might guess that if we make a signal discrete in frequency, it should be periodic in time. So if I make a discrete times, if I sample a discrete time signal in frequency domain also, what I would get is periodic and discrete in time as well as frequency. So but we will go into the details of how do we get this, right? So suppose we have a signal, suppose we have a continuous time domain signal x of t. It would have a corresponding frequency domain representation x of omega as shown in this figure. These plots are just for illustration purposes. These are not these are not some definite functions. These are just to highlight the idea. So it's not that this shape is coming from the Fourier transform of x of t. Now when we sample this x of t as shown here, and if we are sampling at a fast enough rate, so yeah, so let this be, if Ts is the sampling time between two samples, so this would be 2 Ts. So I would get my discrete time signal as x of n from these samples. So we had seen that, and we had also seen that when we sample this in the frequency domain for the sampled signal, for the sample signal x of x of omega, I would be repeating this x of omega for a continuous time signal like this. So, here this would be repeating at the sampling frequency, which is equal to 2 pi by Ts, right. So, this is where we got the Nyquist sampling frequency. So, I should be, my Ts should be large enough so that there is no overlap between two adjacent spectrum, and I don't get any aliasing. If my sampling frequency is less than a certain threshold, so if this is say omega m, so my sampling omega s has to be greater than twice omega m, right. So, in discrete time system, when we are representing this x n T s with this, we are actually assuming that T s is 1. So, that is when you get this becomes x of omega becomes periodic with x of omega plus becomes periodic with 2 pi. If for a general case, this is periodic with omega s, right. So, this is what we had seen for a discrete time Fourier transform. So, if I have a discrete time signal, it would be x of omega would be periodic, right. So, we had seen it like this, and we had seen that it is periodic with period 2 pi. We had discussed in detail the reason for this periodicity coming out to be 2 pi, right. So, now what happens if we sample this x of omega, I mean a range of 2 pi in this x of omega with n sample points. So, I have n points between say this point to this point, there are n points here, right. So, my span is 2 pi. So, my delta omega would be 2 pi by n. So, this would be, so this separation, this would be delta omega. Delta omega is 2 pi by n. So, if I now want to represent this in terms of samples, I can write this as x square bracket k, which is defined as x of 2 pi by n. So, this part is actually delta omega. So, basically what I am saying is x of k is x of delta omega into k, and then I am not continuously varying my frequency variable, but I am incrementing it in steps, in discrete steps, right. So, I can represent my sampled frequency domain signal with x of k. So, this is my sampled frequency domain signal. Now, recall what was originally x of omega. X of omega was this, we got from dTft. So, if x of n is my time domain signal, my x of omega is given as per this equation, and now in this equation, if I apply the discretization property, so my x of k is related to x of n as per this equation, e to the power minus j 2 pi by n k into n. Is that right? So you should watch all these lectures with a notebook and pen. So you should write these, derive these on your own. For this lecture I have written down everything because there were a lot of equations and I realized lot of time was wasted in just writing these equations. So that I can have a smaller video with a less memory size, so it is easier for you to share and carry on your mobile or whatever. But you should derive this, write these all as we proceed with the lecture. So here the summation is from n is equal to from minus infinity to infinity. It's over the entire number line. I can break this summation into multiple summations like this. So I can have infinite number of such summations which goes from minus infinity, comes from minus infinity and so on. Some of the terms of this summation would be, say, n summation from minus n summation from minus n to minus 1 x of n, and then this exponential plus x n going from 0 to n minus 1, and then another summation where n goes from n to 2n minus 1 and so on, right. So this is just rewriting this summation. So I have one summation where limits are minus infinity to plus infinity. I replace it by infinite number of summations where the limit of each summation is length n. So there are n terms in each summation. So you may notice that there is a pattern in these limits. So here it goes from n 0 to n minus 1. Here how do you get this? Here you get this as the limit is from n to n plus n minus 1. Here the limit is from minus n to, here the limit is from minus n to n minus 1. That's how you get this term. So and then there are increasing values of these starting points of these summations. So I can write this as a summation of summation. I can write this as a summation of summation. Can you notice that? So here I can replace this series of summations by a summation of summation where the outer limit is L going from minus infinity to infinity, and there are n terms in the inner summation. There are n terms in this inner summation. Work out the limits on your own. Now in this, if you notice, if I replace m, if I replace n with m plus ln, or I say let m is equal to n minus l, I can rewrite this summation in this form where the limit over L still goes from minus infinity to infinity, but the limit over this inner summation is from 0 to n minus 1. Again I have only n terms here, n terms in this summation, and then I have a multiplication term here. I can split this exponential here. You get this by simply replacing n is equal to m plus ln. So I can split this exponential. The first term comes here, the second term goes here. Here you should notice that this n and n would cancel, and k is an integer, L is an integer. So, e to the power minus 2 pi into kl would be equal to 1. Would be equal to 1, right? E to power, yeah, there is a j here, e to the power 2 pi j basically. So, this entire thing becomes 1. So, I can simply write this as kx as a summation over this part. So, right, I can change the order of summation here. So, now I take the infinite summation inside. So, now I have finite number of summations, but each summation has an inner limit of minus infinity to infinity, right. So, I can interchange the order of summation from here to here. I get this equation. Now, note that in this summation over L, this part is independent of L. Independent of L. So, I can just club this entire thing, and I can represent this term by a new by a new variable xp of m, where this thing is summation over minus infinity to infinity x of m plus ln, right, and then I can replace this. So, what I get is x k is simply this, where x p is what we get from here. So, if you notice, what is this? X of m was our original signal. What I am doing here? I am shifting this signal x of m by n and then adding it, and then I am shifting it by for different value of L. So, what I have is x of m plus x of m plus n plus x of m plus 2n and so on. And similarly, here I have x of m minus n plus x of m minus 2n and so on. So, if you look at this, if x of, so yeah, let me show you this. So, if this was my sample signal, if this was my sample signal x of n, my x of p would be simply addition of the shifted version of these signals. So, this was my original x of n, but my x of p is all these summations, right. So, what is happening? I had a non-periodic signal, discrete time signal x of n, and finally, if I sample my signal in the frequency domain, what I get is the repeated, shifted and repeated version of the same signal, so which gives me a periodic signal. So, you should be able to show that x of p n show that is periodic with period n. Right. So now, as from this illustration, it should be, you might have guessed that if the number of samples in x of k, capital X of k, which is the frequency domain, is more than the length of discrete time signal, then the signal can be represented by the samples in the frequency domain as well. Basically, what I am saying is, if n is greater than or equal to the length of xn, in that case I can represent my signal in the frequency domain as well, only with its samples. So only I can collect the samples, I can have discrete points in frequency domain as well, and I can still represent my signal x of n, provided the number of samples I take in the frequency domain are greater than or equal to the length of the signal xn. Because if I have that, then my x of n is simply xp of n in this range. If I don't have that, if my n is so this is shifted to n, right? This is n. So if this is less than the, if n is less than the length of xn, then there would be overlapping here, and then your signal would not be faithfully represented in the frequency domain by its samples, right? So in this range, I can simply write x of k as summation over 0 to n minus 1 xn given by this, and x of n as 1 by n into this. So this I am not deriving. We had derived a similar result for discrete time Fourier series, discrete time exponential Fourier series. So you should derive this on your own. We would call this as this is frequency. Okay, let me use the same color code. So blue is for frequency domain signal, and this is time domain signal. This is the synthesis equation, and this is the analysis equation. So when we have n points in our DFT, the length of each of this signal would be n. So what we call this as n point DFT. Right. So you should derive this. This is your homework. Now you can see that this representation, this summation, gives a very nice interpretation in terms of linear transformation. So if I rewrite this analysis equation, I can write x of k as x of 0 plus e to power minus j 2 pi by n into k x 1. So here this is k into 1. Similarly, I increment the summation here is over n, right? So summation is over n, So I just go on writing this, and there are n such terms. This is not an infinite, this is not an infinite series, this finite series, right? And so this is true for k integer values of k from 0 to n minus 1. So there are n such equations for different values of k. So now note here that this black term here is common. Yeah, let me, the black term here is common. So I can write this e to the power minus j 2 pi by n by a variable w n. N would represent the number of points in my DFT. So for n point DFT I have, so for example if I have an 8 point DFT I would have W8. So for n, for say 8 point DFT, my n would be 8 and my W8 would be e to the power minus j 2 pi by 8. So now I can write this analysis equation in form like this. So Wn to power k n, again for different values of k I will get n such equations. Now if I represent all these values capital X of 0 to capital X of n minus 1 in terms of a vector, and similarly my time domain signal also in terms of in form of a vector. So these are like single values, I have just arranged it in form of a vector. So you can see that this notation can be simply, so this summation, what is this summation? So for example if I take k is equal to 2, my summation is w n k is 2, n varies, and then similarly x of n varies according to n. So I can get the similar operation if I define a matrix. If I define a matrix whose length is n cross, whose size is n cross n in this form, and if I multiply this matrix w n with my vector x of x n, I would simply get x of k. So I can write x of k in a simple linear transformation equation as this. Linear transformation. So this is, the signal is from the time domain is linearly transformed to the frequency domain signal, and the operation is simply multiplication with this matrix. So from this expression you can also get x Wn inverse given by this. We can follow the similar procedure for the synthesis equation as well. The only difference would be here the multiplicating weighing term would be w n to power minus 1, and w n to power minus 1 would be conjugate of this. So w n minus to power minus 1 is simply w n conjugate, and then you can you should be able to show this thing. So this is an assignment for you. Show that Wn into Wn conjugate is equal to n in. In is the identity matrix, right. So to summarize, DFT inherently assumes that the signal is periodic in time. So the moment you compute DFT, so suppose you have a time domain signal which has say 120 points. So n goes from 0 to 119, or capital as n is 120. The moment you apply this DFT on that signal, you are assuming that the signal repeats after its defined range. So this is a very important thing, because DFT is the algorithm which is DFT is the transform which is generally implemented in computers, and fast Fourier transform FFT is an efficient algorithm to compute this DFT. So FFT you might have seen in oscilloscopes and some other sources, so some other signal analyzers. There is an option of just clicking FFT. So that is what does FFT do? FFT essentially computes DFT. FFT is an algorithm. You will learn this in the next year or in the course on digital signal processing. So I can't be going into the details of fast Fourier transform in this course, but essentially FFT is an efficient algorithm to compute DFT. It reduces the order of computations required to compute the Fourier transform. FFT is also widely implemented in MATLAB, Python. So here I am showing you a small code snippet where this is NP is a NumPy, so I can use FFT function inbuilt in the NumPy library. This is commonly used. The point I want to emphasize now is that you should not forget that FFT is computing DFT, and DFT inherently assumes the signal is periodic in time. This is essential because I will give you an example where I will give you an applied example. This is from my research which I was doing during my postdoc. So here this figure shows the plot of electric field from a moving charged particle. So when a charged particle moves with a velocity above a threshold velocity, it radiates, and that radiation is called Cherenkov radiation. So here what I am plotting is a Cherenkov radiation. So I did all the derivations. We solved those differential equations in the frequency domain, in the spatial frequency domain. So I solved it, and then the result I got was this. Now I was not able to understand what was going on here. So I was looking at these sort of patterns which I should not have been seeing, and I spent lot of time trying to understand what's going on. I checked that my equations were right, code implementation was right, everything seemed okay, but this is not how this looks more like a interference pattern. This is not what I would have expected. The reason is that I am using the algorithm of FFT. FFT computes DFT, and DFT assumes that my source is periodic. I mean source in this case, but my time domain or the spatial domain signal is periodic. So what it was assuming that I have a source here, and then I had a charge here, and then it was repeating. I had another charge here, and then another charge here, and another charge here, and then so on, and then this was periodic. So the pattern which I got was actually so all of these were radiating, and then this was the interference pattern which I was getting. Interference, because my charge distribution was periodic. So it is important that you clearly understand the deeper concepts which are involved in this Fourier transform, and especially in the FFT algorithm, because you would be widely using FFT, you would be actually blindly using FFT many times without actually realizing what's going on inside, right? So I will, for this lecture I may also share the notes. This lecture was covered from this topic is not given in Oppenheim. So this topic is given in digital signal processing by Proakis. Let me tell you the chapter number 7 of digital signal processing by Proakis. This is given in this book. We have finished our module 3 with this topic. In the next lecture we will very briefly recap the Fourier transforms, the periodicity and discretization properties, and then we will build a case for generalized frequency domain analysis, and we will start with the Z transform. Okay, good day.